First of all, can you hear me without the microphone?
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody have an outline. Okay. Do you have an outline? You're driving? Okay. Who are the novices? First time. Okay. But if you have any questions, ask while we're here. If it's something that you want to talk about beyond this, we can always talk about after. Basically what we're going to do is go through this outline, and then we have 3 or 4 exercises set up that we would like to break these up into a couple of different groups and try some things out. So you can practice these methods, and then we can take those exercises away, and then you can run the course and see how they help you running the course. Okay, a little background on me, which David was nice enough to say, but yes, I am from the U.S. My first autocross was in 1974. Okay, I was 40 years old then, and that was my first event, and I still have that MG at home. So I'm kind of an old dinosaur in a sense. I've then moved from street stock cars up to modified cars, run national events, the national championship, pro solo, which is like your drag and wine, and and I still compete. So, and now I'm here, and you guys are doing the same thing I've done when I started. So, it's a great sport, and it really, really, really helps you out on the street. I can't tell you the amount. There are years I've been driven 50,000 miles a year for work, and I can't tell you how many times I've avoided situations by having the skills that I've learned through autocross. So, okay, number 1. Body. Head. Straight, not tilted around the corners. Belted in tight. Forget it to belting yourself in, but if you're belted in tight, then you won't have a tendency to lean. A lot of us, when we go into a turn, we're doing this. Part of it is because if it's a stock car, the car is really leaning the opposite direction, and you're trying to lean in. The thing is, when you look at something straight on, your eyes are used to looking with your head straight up, and they focus and they feed back information as to distance, time, all that. When you tilt your head, all of a sudden now your eyes and your brain have to now take information that's not used to seeing. So it sounds very minor, and it is. But all these little things that I'm talking about today are minor things. But over practice and time, they accumulate to saving time on the course. And that's one thing in autocross. Everybody thinks you're going faster to make up time, but you're really saving time. The only thing you can do on an autocross course is lose time. You lose time. If you lost it, it's gone. You can't regain it back. So you're always trying to avoid losing time on the course. So if you tilt your head and your mind takes a split second to refocus and figure something out, you've lost time. So that's why. If you're belted in tight, then you're not trying to hold yourself into the car. That's why seatbelts and having them tight as possible is very, very, very important. You should be able to drive without having to hold on to the steering wheel to keep you in place. You want to be able to just use the steering wheel as it's needed. So, again, try to keep your head straight up. Your torso belted in. Most of the cars I see here are street cars or modified street cars. You have a 3-point seatbelt. Nowadays, the way they are, they move. What you need to do is put the seatbelt, flick it in. Pull the shoulder strap tight, as tight as you can get it on your waist. Hold it at the clip, unclip it, twist it twice, and put it back in. You should be struggling to get it back in, okay, after you twist it, because it will shorten up. That's where you need to be. It's not going to help your upper shoulders, but at least keep your hips in. If your hips are in and not moving, you're better off. Okay. Obviously, if you have a harness with shoulder straps, tight, tight, tight. Okay. So you need to be in. And we're not worried about an accident. We're just saying you need to be tight so that you can control the car. You should be able to basically lift your feet off the floor, lift your hands, and if the car was still moving, you wouldn't be moving around. So that's very important. Again, twist, twist, and flick. Okay? Any questions on that? Feet, shoes. Okay. Left foot braking. That's something, when I say feet, we're talking about comfort, but we're also talking about use. Most full drive, use your right foot throttle, right foot for the brake. If you have a standard transmission, you use your left foot for the clutch. In performance driving, and possibly driving on the street, you have to be a little careful. Left foot braking is an advantage. Okay? You want to sometimes, in order to set the car up and not have it, when you're going from full throttle to get onto the heavy braking, first of all, there's a gap while you move your foot. The car in full throttle, weight is to the back, it's light in the front. Usually you're braking because you're coming to a turn. You want to turn. Well, when you turn, you need weight to the front. You're going to get that with the brake. But the car is moving. The best thing is if you can start to hit your left foot brake about a tenth of a second before you come off the throttle. What that does is it starts to set the car into its position, and you don't have a drastic change of weight transfer from rear to front. It sets the car up. It goes in much smoother. Also, if you're in a front-wheel drive car, many times they will understeer. We'll get into that. But trail braking will help you modulate the car and handle the car going through the turn. So, the thing to do is practice on the street. If you have a front-wheel drive car and you want to start learning the left foot brake, you can't learn by only doing it once a month at an event. You have to learn by doing it on the street. So you just get used to using your left foot. Because what will happen is, when you try to use it now, you're going to brake much harder than you expect. Because your left foot is just not used to it. You have to learn that. So again, a lot of these things are things you can practice. But that you have to practice while you're driving. Certain things you can practice while sitting in your seat and watching TV, but like hand shuffling, stuff like that. But braking, left foot braking, you need to practice on the street. We'll get into more details on why that's an advantage. Heel and toe. If you can master this, great. I'll be honest, 40 years, I've never mastered it. Okay, I've never, just haven't mastered it. It wasn't a big deal for me in autocrossing because I shift in the middle of the corner at a point where I don't have to heel and toe. But if you can master it, and that is the case where your foot, the ball of your foot, left foot, right foot will be on the brake pedal, and the side of your right foot is rolling over. You look at the throttle, you get the revs up, so that when you let the clutch out, the engine doesn't all of a sudden come up in its RPM. Because then you're trying to get the engine is trying to match the speed of the wheels, and it just upsets the car. So left foot, heel and toe. If you want to learn that, I don't know if there's anybody that's really good at it. I mean, I know there was a driver, Gordon was going to come, who I would assume is very good at it, but he's not here today. So we can talk about that separately. There's always things online. You can always go online, just look that up, and you can learn about that.
I want to flip before you.
You can do that. But again, the idea of heel and toe, and when they say heel and toe, really what they were talking about is you have your gas pedal, you have your brake pedal, you have your clutch pedal. The idea technically is supposed to be that your foot would be like that. Your toes up here. So that you're putting your brake, your most feel in your foot is on the ball of your foot. You put your right toes up on the brake and you look at your heel. That's where the heel and toe comes from. Some drivers, if you're close enough, you can put your foot here and press down the ball of your foot and just roll the thing over. If you're doing what you're saying, look at the throttle, that's good, that should be done. But that, don't forget, by the time you flip it and you move your foot to the brake, the engine's got up and it's starting to come down already. And there's that gap. So by doing it simultaneously, you're quicker and you're doing more things at one time. But I've never just been able to master it. I've not practiced enough. I think I probably could, but I just never had to in my driving. So it is a skill that can be learned. It's just a learned skill. It's not something that, oh, he can do it and I can't. It's a matter of a learned skill. Much better. Comfortable thin-soled shoes. You will see if I drive in competition, I put on a pair of racing shoes. And I'm sure some people look at me and say, oh, he has to put on a special pair of shoes to drive. It's not that I have to. I mean, I drive in regular sneakers, sports shoes sometimes. But if I'm trying to really compete and do well, then those are my comfortable shoes. The sole is very thin. I wouldn't want to walk on the street with them very often. I wouldn't want to run with them because my feet will bother me. But you can feel the pedal much better. And that's the whole idea. A lot of the sports shoes that we have are very thick because they're made for running. And that's not what you want when you're driving a car. You don't have that pressure. You want to be able to feel what's going on with the pedal. So again, the best thing to do, whatever shoe you use it all the time. Don't wear one pair of shoes at one event and wear another pair going to the next event. Oh, I'm dressing to match my outfit. Wear the same pair of shoes, at least at the same, at all your events. Get used to that pair of shoes. Also, sports shoes have a problem in that if they're really made for running or something, they can be very wide across the ball of your foot. And that can become a problem on some of the smaller cars with small pedals. You could wind up putting the brake on and hitting the throttle when you didn't want to. So again, a shoe that's very narrow, not like his. My tennis shoe is great, the Pumas are great, but even like what I have is not really good because the sole is wide and it's not preferable. The main thing, okay, then, hands. Okay, everybody on with the shoe. Hands. What do you do with your hands for steering? There are a couple methods. One thing you don't want to do is this, hand over hand into a tight turn. No good, too much time lost, uncontrollable. You don't want to ever go like that underhand either. Again, if something kicks back, whatever, it's very awkward. Very simple method I use is called the shuffle. If I want to make a hard right turn, now if I can turn the car this much and complete my turn, I'm fine. I don't have to do anything. But if I have to turn the wheel beyond this, and now it's becoming awkward. Some people feel very comfortable. The thinner you are, you don't have as much in the front as I do, that can become very easy, okay? But what I do is I basically put my hand up here. As I feed, I think I wrote down, pop, pull down, pop, pull down. And when you start to come out of the turn, pop, pull down, pop, pull down. So the idea is when I go here and I go to here, I've got this much room. I'm back to 9 and 3. So you understand that? Any questions? Again, practice. I even thought in getting ready for the class, I thought to myself, do I really do that when I compete? I don't pay attention. I'm looking at the course, I'm trying to figure out, I don't know what I do. But I do know that I do that on the street. When I'm watching with myself when I'm driving around the streets, this is what I'm doing. And because I practice it on the street, I'm assuming I do it out here because now it's my natural way of turning. So, any questions on that? And
One time to do.
No. Now you'll see that in drifting because first of all they are trying to go back and forth, and they're sometimes on the front shift. I haven't drifted. Drifting is so opposite of autocrossing. We never want to drift, almost, and definitely not to the extent that they do. A little bit of a drift on times going through certain sweepers, you'll need to do it just to have a balance between the car and getting through it. Too much drifting, you're slowing down. If the back tires are going sideways, they aren't going forward. They are scrubbing speed. They are slowing you down. Every time the tire is, if I'm going this way, if this tire is pointing this way, it's slowing down. It's not going fast. So drifting is not the way to do it here. We have a lot of people that come out to these events here because of the rally and then the old style dexterity events. Dexterity events, we used to have them in the States, we call them gymkhanas, 360s, in and out of boxes, all that kind of stuff. They're fun. They are a lot of fun. They're just not solo. They're not autocrossing. Autocrossing, the best way to equate it is qualifying laps per race. When you see anybody qualifying for a race, be it NASCAR, Indy, Formula One, DTM, anything, circuit racing, and if they're doing 1 or 2 laps, they're going for the maximum speed on that lap. That's what solo is. The only difference is we get 1 lap, and then we take a break, we do 1 lap. We don't have warm-up laps, we don't have 20-minute sessions to do multiple laps. We have 2, 3 laps, and there are gaps in between them. So we have to be precise, and I'll get into the mental part of it because most of autocrossing is precision driving. It's mental, much more than the car prep. So again, drifting is different, and again, you always want your wheels to be as straight as possible. Once you're getting into the turn, you want to turn the minimum amount of time that you're in the turn. So, anything else about?
But I want to hand like
Rule of thumb was you should be able to put your wrist on top of the wheel and let your hand hang over. That was a rule of thumb. That also has to come into play with your legs, your car, whether it's got a telescopic wheel or not. If it's an Italian car, you'll be lucky to reach it because of the way they usually have them set up. And it's a comfort level. Some people like to, in autocrossing, you notice a lot of times today, everybody's driving the car with the seat back, and they're cruising, and they're listening to their music. That's fine for cruising. It's not autocrossing. On autocrossing, you want to be a little bit more upright. You want to see the cones. You want to see the car. When you're placing that car against the cone, you should be inches away from that cone, not feet, not 10 inches, not 2 feet, inches, 3 to 10 inches max. Okay. So if a cone is here, your tire should be rolling this far away from the cone. Now, many times I've rolled over the edge, and that takes a lot of luck to roll over the edge and leave the cone where it is. In the United States, in our events, we chalk the cone on the ground. If the cone is moved, as long as a portion of the cone is in that chalk line, it's good. It's not a penalty. So I have no problem running over the cone and doing this with the cone, and I'm okay. So you have to be precise. I'm trying to think where we were. Right. So the further away you are, you also need a little bit of strength. The further away it is, now most we have power steering, so that doesn't matter as much anymore. But something like, again, I would just say start with that. Put your wrist over it, see if it dangles. That will give you enough room that you can do this too. If you're too close, then you're fighting your own body. And you and I, we have that, there's enough in there to get in the way. So you want to be out there. Okay. Anything else with steering? I know I'm going a little fast, but they want to keep the course down for an hour so we can go out and do some exercise. Again, the last thing on body is be comfortable. Don't get in a car and put it in a position to move the seat or something like that. You're uncomfortable. Be comfortable. You shouldn't have to be running the course saying, man, my wallet's in my way, or something pinched me, or now I'm completely uncomfortable. You need to be comfortable. You shouldn't be thinking about that. You should only be thinking about driving, where am I going, where am I placing my car on the course. Okay, any other questions on body and stuff like that? Okay, mental. Solo is more mental thought on how to drive the car and to drive the course. Yeah, it is. It's when I was competing on a national basis on Pro Solo, going to multiple events during the year, I was running a D-Mod MGB. I would rebuild the car over the winter, and then I would run the car all year long. The only thing I adjusted on the car during the year was tire pressure. I very rarely did anything modified mechanical to the car. And yet, every year, through the season, I would get faster and faster and faster. I only say that because our courses change every time, so you really don't know, but I was closer and closer and closer to the competition. So I knew I was driving faster. And it was a matter of here more than into the mechanical part. It was practicing, doing my methods, going through my steering, my braking. All these things were just getting better and better. It's mental. You have to know your course. 2, walk the course. Walk the course. Walk the course. You only have, the only time you have to learn the course, other than driving it, is walking it. If you walk it only to remember where it goes, but not deciding on how to drive it, we are now going to put that how to drive it lesson or learning into the first run. Well, you're wasting that run. In the U.S., in a national event, you have 3 runs, not 6. Not, we have as many, let's have, extra runs. You have 3 runs to make your best run. You have to be on the top of the game the moment you leave on the first run. So again, it's a matter of knowing and learning the course when you walk it. And do not walk in a large group or a crowd, unless you're being instructed. If we wanted to walk the course as a group and go out and somebody's leading, that's fine. But otherwise, you want to typically be by yourself, or maybe with your co-driver because you're driving the same car, or maybe somebody else that is trying to help you or that you're trying to listen to and see because you're new to the game. What I have found, one of the reasons I'm here is because I have found the solo community or the autocross community, whether it be in the U.S., whether it be here, or any other country, and now even Peru or Chile, they're coming up, they're running our nationals. They're all the same. We're all friends. We're all here because we like to drive, we like our cars, and we like to compete. And any of us will help you. Yeah, somebody may not tell you his little secret, but generally, everybody will help you learn the game. When you get really good, they may stop helping. But generally, any of the experienced guys will help you. Find anyone who's running, has a car similar to yours, whether it be front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, turbo, automatic, standard shift. Find someone that's got something that's similar to yours, and ask. Just ask. I find you'll help. When you're walking, walk the line. Walk where you're going to be. If your car is coming through here, and you want to get there, and your car is here, and you're sitting here, that's where you should be walking. You don't walk through the center of the gates. You should be walking where you will be sitting when you go through the gate. When you come over here, and your car is here, you should be in the center of the gate, because that's how far your car away it is. Now, if your car is 5 feet wide, you should be 4 feet away from the gate. If this cone is here, and I'm driving my car this way, I'm going to be about 1 to 2 feet away when I'm walking that course, because that's where my mind is going to see me be into that cone. I have to allow for my door, I have to allow for my tires, but I shouldn't be out there. I can't stress enough how important walking the course. Now, just a little bit of example. I run 2 events here. I shared a car with a coworker. This car is a Kia Sorento. It's brand new. It's completely stopped. I drove the car 10 minutes before I got to the event. Okay, so I'd never really been in the car. We walked the course. Now, Chris is, I don't know how long he's run, but he's run solo decks for, a couple years. So, fairly experienced. Had won some trophies as a novice, I believe, but when he moved up, he didn't win any trophies. So we walked the course, Now, and I'm not trying to brag, please believe me, because I'm not that good. I'm a good driver, but I'm not the best. But yet, when I came out and I competed, I was a second and a half faster than everybody in the class. The first time I was in the car, in the first lap. Why? Because I walked the course. I decided on the walk where I was going to put that car on the course, how I was going to drive it, and that's what I did. Now, I wasn't learning the course at that time. I knew the course. I was learning the subtleties of the car, but I knew what I wanted to do. Now, experience means I can read a car maybe a little bit better than some and know what it can do, but it was because I decided on the walkthrough. Chris and I walked alone. Now, just the other day, the second event, I went out and I led everybody. Chris, on the last run that day, Chris beat me. okay? He beat me by a tenth. I think I hit a tone, but if you look at the raw time, it was a tenth off. And yesterday, we were chatting at work, or no, actually Friday at work, and I asked him, I said, well, have I helped you for the 2 events you ran? He said, the biggest thing you helped me with is teaching me how to walk the course and decide how to drive the car. He said, because now, he says, that's the biggest thing I think really helped me. So I can't emphasize enough. Walking the course. I walk the course at least 3 times, if I can, before an event. If it's a national event, I'm looking at 5 or 6 times. Okay? Look at it as your exercise program for the day. Okay? And walk with a good pace. Don't lounge. This is not a lining session. Okay? This is a learning session for you. If you truly want to be competitive, that's what you have to do. If you're coming out to just have a good time, and you don't worry about the competition, or you're not worried about placing in a position or winning, no problem. Take your time, learn the skills, and have fun with us. We don't mind that either, you know. But if you want to win, if you want to place, and winning isn't everything. It may just be learning your car, becoming a better driver. Sometimes you just don't have a car in your class that's going to allow you to win. But it doesn't mean that you can't improve as a driver. But again, walk the course. We went through that. Know your car's limits and capabilities. Now, if you're a novice, you're not going to know your car's limits and capabilities. You may think you know it from the street, but even my son at 10 years, 13 years old, I took my son to a go-karting racing school. Him and I both went. He did very well. Then for the next couple of years, we ran what they call mini cup cars, basically a bigger go-kart with a body. And he beat me almost every event. He was better at it than I was. He was a lot lighter too, and that was one of the issues I claimed. But he then went into autocross. And he was doing that before he had his license. When he got 16, he went to his first autocross, and we both had a Ford Taurus SHO. He drove the car. I drove the car. He was 6 seconds behind me on a 35, 40-second course. And he just couldn't understand. I said, okay, Garrett, he's a junior, come with me and drive with me in the car. And when he drove in the car, he was in the passenger seat hanging on, and he just could not understand how I got as much out of that car. But again, I had learned the capabilities. I knew how far I could go in and brake. I knew how much acceleration I could get out of it. I knew the course better. I knew how to drive better on that course. But just by the end of the day, he got up to within 2 seconds of me. Now, I try to beat him when I go to events, okay? But now I drive his street car at events, and he drives his car all the time, so he's better knowing what his car can do. But again, that's something you have to learn. Learn what the car can do. Don't worry about trying to make the car do something more. Don't worry, especially if you're a novice, don't worry about getting new bushings, new shocks, new springs. The biggest thing you can do is here and your skills. The next thing would be tires. Okay? That would be the next biggest thing. After that, then you start worrying about suspension. We're not even going to get into that today because that's another whole, engineering problem. But learn the capabilities of your car. Know when you have to brake in order to get slowed down enough for that turn. Know how. Maybe you don't have much acceleration out of your car. So now you have to look at certain corners and say, how do I maximize my speed? Because I don't have the power that the guy over here with the Evo has. Okay? But I'm not competing against him directly, but I don't have his power. How do I make up for that? Okay. Analyze the course on the walk. Again, now we're going to go further into that. Dissect the course into important elements and less important elements. This comes from, again, knowing your capabilities as a driver, knowing the capabilities as a car. Is this a front-wheel drive car that's going to push on these corners? I have to come in a little bit slower in order to drive through the corner. Do I have a car that's always loose, and when I go in, I'm going to lose the back end on this? So now I have to modulate that better. Maybe I have to do some, braking a little bit early, drive nicely, but I can accelerate a lot sooner with that car. You have to learn and look at the course. Straights, well, again, we'll get into it a little bit further, but you need to be able to dissect the course into turns. And we will get that, that'll be the last thing I'll go over. remember, all cars will brake faster than accelerate. So, though you think of acceleration, when everybody speaks of speed, all they can think of is mashing the gas, going fast. Braking stops you sooner than the car can accelerate. So what that means to us is you want to do the least amount of braking as possible. It may be maximum braking, but you want to do it over the shortest period of time. Because you need to save time for acceleration, because acceleration is a slow process. What that also reverts into is going through the turn. You want to drive through the turn as fast as possible, so when you come out of the turn, you are already faster than you were before, and you can carry more speed. If you're a half a mile an hour faster coming out of the turn, every foot that you go down that straightaway, you are a half a mile faster than you were before. And when you accumulate it all, it can be multiple miles at the very end. If you waste your time or doing something in the turn and you're slower, you've lost time. And again, that's the thing. You lose time on autocrosses. You don't want to lose time. You want to avoid that. Look for features to help you pick spots on a turn or to brake. I'm not saying this is something to do now. First you have to learn certain things. When you get proficient at driving and walking the course, and you get proficient at knowing where to brake, coming into a turn, and you want to do that maybe. Where are you going to start braking? You may decide I want to brake over here. I want to put the brakes on somewhere about here. You may need to look on the course and see if there's something there that's going to tell you in your mind, that's my spot. It could be a patch of oil. It could be a patch of sand. It could be there could be stripes for parking, and there could be a box, and then you can pick that corner. Look for things that will help you decide where you're going to do it. Now, you have to obviously be smart enough not to pick a spot just because there's a spot, but that's not where you want to be. I mean, if you want to brake over there, then disregard that. But look around, judge, see how you can pick out something that's going to help you determine where to turn in. This course, though it is big, even though they don't think it is a big site, it's relatively flat. There's no real major potholes, but there are a couple little issues. We have some sand areas. There are some issues that we try to avoid with the course. You have to decide sometimes to look where the course goes. Sometimes we can't avoid them. You have to decide, is that feature going to be a problem for me? Am I running through sand? Is the car going to get loose? Is it going to slide? So be careful of those things. Learn the features of the course. Again, that's why you can't do this on one walkthrough. You can't think of all these things and remember it, and remember where the course is. Usually when I do the first walkthrough, I'm kind of looking, really remembering where the course goes and a general idea. By the second and third one, now I know where I'm going. Now I'm starting to pick out those spots, really analyze where I have to brake, where I can accelerate. Look for future drive. Look for your apex within 3 inches. We kind of talked about that. Again, look for the corner. That's going to be your apex. This cone here may be my apex. So if I'm looking to that, I want to bring it in so that my tires are right off that cone. And as I said, 3 inches. That's not a number that I came up with. I'll be honest, I took it out of the book. But that's what I learned. That's what I use. But that's how close you want to be. Every time you're out further, you're not at the right spot. And if you talk to racing drivers on circuit racing, they're the same thing. They are inches. Formula One drivers are almost less than inches. If they're inches off, they're way too far. I mean, they are talking in the same time, repeatedly, hitting that same mark. When they say they're hitting their marks, that's what they mean. They are repeatedly hitting their marks. You have to do the same thing, okay? This is a qualifying lap. Look for features that will slow you down. I kind of mentioned that, look for something irregular in the asphalt, a dip, a sandy spot, an oil spot, anything like that that's going to slow you down. Look at those and decide if you can drive straight through it, or if you're in a turn, you have to avoid it. So So pay attention to those. Lengthen the straights, shorten the corners. So when you're having when you're doing something like this, you want to look and you want to straighten this length out from here to here. Can you go from here to there? A lot of times, if somebody looks at the map will show this, and it'll show kind of like that when you're going through it. But you can turn and you can go straight through it. And that's what I mean by lengthening the straights. You have to be able to look out and look and say, do I really have to turn? Or can I get straight through that? How wide is the gate? How wide is my car? People will see me sometimes going out there and I'll see a gate here and a gate there. I will look at this gate and I'll pace 6 feet and see if my car will fit between there and the next gate. Then I can go straight through it rather than have to turn. Or maybe I just don't have to turn as much. But lengthen the straights. Yeah.
On that point too, I read somewhere that now it helps a bit of behind too. If you walk up to the end of the gate and then you look back. Because sometimes when you look forward, you could get confused with where the straight line might be. But if you go all the way up and you look back, you can actually see a straight line. How does it from perspective?
I have looked backwards. I would tend to say
It doesn't matter.
you're never driving backwards.
Right.
And you're always coming out of, now, that's why, again, more practice, you have to look at something back here, and you can't just look at this turn individually, right? You have to look at this turn, but then you have to look at the next one and say, this is a long straight, I can accelerate, I may need to adjust this turn. It's kind of like looking back, but I have to adjust this turn because my first thought was getting through this turn fast, but maybe it put me in the wrong position to accelerate and make that longer. So maybe I have to sacrifice back here before this turn so that my exit is more important than my entry. And that's something we'll get into a little bit more because that would become now an ingress turn rather than an egress turn, or actually it has to be an egress turn. I want to make it that I can accelerate out of it faster, lengthen that course. Now, you may look at the next turn and say, I originally was going to drive it this way, but it's at the end of the straight. I can lengthen and extend my acceleration and my fast speed if I drive deeper into that turn, brake a little bit harder, and come out of it. I won't come out as fast, but there's something happening at the other end. There's no straight, so I need to maximize this one. It's a lot of learning your car, learning what skills you have as a driver, and what capabilities your car has, what you can maximize on the course. Looking back though is, yeah, but you should be able to see the same thing from the front. Okay. Straighten out the course. Does the offset gate really require you to turn? Well, we kind of talked about that. Okay. Any other things about walking the course? Shifting. And move quickly when you're shifting up. You just want to be as fast as you can to shift up, especially if you're not in an automatic. If you're in an automatic, you don't really have much choice. Normally I found in driving automatics nowadays, most of them have manual, and if they don't, a lot of times I would even start an event in second gear, or I'll put it in first, that you can still manually shift an old one. It's just not as good, or maybe it's not as flat. But if you're in automatic, I would usually start in first before you know it. I just bump into second and try to stay in second, depending upon the car's capabilities of how fast it can go in second. Pretty much old cars used to just leave in second and let it go, and that's what you would do. Some of the newer cars, like the car I co-drove with Chris, you flip it over, it's into a manual mode. What we found on that car is, nowadays with computers, the car is always trying to think what's best for you. That isn't what, it doesn't think of autocross. So we found that we'll go into a hard turn, brake hard, the car automatic just stays there, it doesn't downshift. So as we're in the middle of the turn, we're slapping that to get it from third back into first, or second. And so that's what we're doing with his car. If you're manually, and on an automatic, when you're accelerating, it'll usually go to red line. Now, some cars like his, if you put it in manual mode, it will go a little bit further towards the red line. If it's in automatic mode, it'll shift sooner. So that you have to pay attention to what the specs are on your car. Standard shift, my modified MG, I start in second gear. It's geared so low that first gear is a waste of time. So I start in second gear, especially when we have a rolling start. But you want to upshift as fast as possible. You want to be able to, I know there's double clutching. I was taught that when I was young by my parents and my grandparents, and that's a good way of saving the transmission, but it's not the way necessarily the fastest way to drive. So if you can be really quick, clutch, and just shift really quick, going up. Coming down, when not to upshift, okay. When you're in a manual transmission, sometimes it's straight. You get to a point where you're hitting the rev limiter on the car. You then have to determine, can I stay at the rev limiter because it's another 50 feet? Or can I upshift and downshift faster than that time? And that's a matter of practice. You have to learn and you have to gauge your car. There are cars, I've just hit the rev limiter, let the engine just bounce on the rev limiter because it just wasn't enough time to upshift and downshift. And it would upset the car more. Because now, once I upshift, it's a light period, it's back to accelerate, and now it's a downshift, the cars don't, and it's just upsetting the car's suspension. So just hit the rev limiter, let it go. But don't do it for too long. And that's a matter of a learning process. Downshifting, well, heel and toe. We talked about that earlier. Okay, it's a good way to downshift. I downshift, if I have a standard transmission, I downshift at the apex, in the middle of the corner. It sounds almost like, what are you doing? But rather than downshifting, and again, this could be maybe, well, first of all, it was something I was taught at an autocross school. So it's not something that I came up with. I think I'm comfortable with it because I found it works for me, and I'm not good at heel and toeing. So what I do is I brake into the corner. I'm accelerating. I'm now braking. I'm turning into the corner. I don't need the engine to slow my own car down. My brakes will slow the car down faster than anything. So why do I need the downshift? But I need that gear to get out of the turn. I can't be in the gear. I'm going to bog down if my RPMs drop and I'm not in the right gear. So what I do is while I'm braking, now my left foot is free. My right foot is full on the brake. I'm into the turn. I'm coming to the apex. And right at that moment is when I put the clutch in, drop it into the lower gear, and I'm accelerating out. Okay? It's something, and where did I learn it? I learned the method out of an autocross school. Where did I practice it? On the street. I used to drive a big full American box van with a standard shift that was this tall off the floor, and had 3 speeds plus an overdrive. And I used to go into turns, left foot braking, and I would downshift that van in the corner and accelerate out. Now I was only doing that 10 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour. I wasn't racing, but I was practicing my skills. I was practicing the movement. So by the time I got to an autocross, I didn't have to think about it. It was natural. It was natural. That's where you have to practice these things. Practice left foot braking.
But
So,
does not upset the track? Put the gear in your corner?
nope. No, not if you're right. Not if you're in the right gear, the RPMs are right. You're accelerating out at that time. But that's why it's a practice method. If you do it right in that moment when you're it's almost that period, that split second when you're posting. Right? What? If you're really good heel toe, you can do that. That's what I'm saying. These are two different methods. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm saying they both work. Okay? They both work. It's a matter of practicing what works for you. And I've gone from third to first because well, if the car needs first gear and you've slowed down to the speed you need to slow and you need first gear come out, you just drop it in and you're on the gas and you're out.
The key for that technique I think is running the car. You have to be ready to run now well.
Right.
If it's in a completely new car, you'll run out of problem with that technique because you really have to know how much, what is the least amount of slow down for that
But again, this is a practice routine. And that's why I said, I practice it on the street. But I practice it in my van, not on my race car. But the method was there. The timing was there. And I just had to decide on the MG what was the best gear for me. You know, sometimes I didn't shift. I had enough torque out of the MG that I could stay in third.
So let's say some cars, the error is might be so that they do that and get away with second gear.
Oh yeah, no. First, what I'm saying, I'm not saying you have to go first. All I'm saying is if you require to downshift, you could downshift in the middle of the turn and get away with it, and it's an accepted method. Okay, but it may not be the first. I've done it, but that's drastic. That has to be a really tight turn. Okay, but I'm just saying it's a method. Automatic trans, we kind of talked about that. Left foot brake, manual mode, when to manually shift it, look for lag, you may have to shift earlier. You have to learn your automatic transmission a little bit because they have a certain amount of lag in them. They're not as crisp as a standard shift. So you have to really pay attention to that, okay? Any questions on that? Tires. Learn the limits of your tires on your car. Learn to read your tires. This is something we all know we need to add air pressure for autocrossing and to make cars handle better. And don't be afraid. We've run cars with 45 pounds in a standard street tire. Okay? When I say you have to learn your tire and what it can do. There'll be a recommended maximum, but that's for loading and that. You can always go above that. Mark your tires with shoe polish. Rule of thumb, 1/4 inch over the edge. What you would do is take white shoe polish, and we can always do it on your cars when we do the exercises. You're going to put a white stripe from the tread over to the edge. 3 spots, 4 spots around the tire. When you go out and you start going around turns, when you're on the tread, it's going to start to wear that shoe polish off. When your car leans into a corner and the tire starts to roll over on that edge, it's going to start to wear it off going on the sidewall. That's where we want to read it. You want to be about a 1/4 inch over the edge. Beyond that, you don't have enough air. You need more air in your tire. You need to bring up the air pressure. And that's the matter that you learn. Adjust the pressure to the mark's indication. Whatever it tells you to do. That's how I race. That's what I do. I wouldn't sit there and try and analyze it. I would just read it and go, I need more air. You know, on this course, I need more air. It could be maybe there was more of one type of turn or a hard turn or something like that. Adjust the pressure to the course requirements. Well, again, that's going to be, you know, based on, you may find an optimum pressure for your car in normal steady state turns. But for this particular course, due to either too many slaloms, too many left-hand turns, too many right-hand turns, and that could do to your weight, because we're not balancing